And welcome back, students. We're going today to discuss JavaScript, which is a very powerful tool in web design, which allows web pages not to merely be static documents, but allows you to get input from the user, whether that input is using something like running a PHP script or running some kind of math calculation, whatever it is. But it's some kind of thing that usually lets the user get some kind of interaction with the browser. And there's two ways to do it. You can either embed it right inside your HTML document using the script tag, which indicates the presence of JavaScript, or you can do an external file. And it's highly recommended that your JavaScript is always an external file, as there's several advantages to doing this. The first of course, is it separates the HTML code from the JavaScript code. Kind of like what we're doing with the CSS stuff. It kind of keeps them separate so you can work on the CSS all in one file and don't have to worry about it messing up anything in your HTML code. JavaScript is going to have the same advantage there. In doing that makes the HTML and the JavaScript codes easier to read because they have some slightly different syntax, so keeping them separate is always to your benefit. And lastly, the cached JavaScript files, so when they're separated into an own file, your web browser tends to cache them, which helps speed up the web page loading. So that if you have frequent visitors that come to your web page very often, and you have a JavaScript file running, if it's on its own file, it's going to be cached and help speed up your page load time. Now, regardless of whether you're doing internal or external, the placement of the JavaScript should always be in the head of your document. Right? And if you're doing an external file, we're going to need to link it. And so I've already go ahead and placed a space right here for that, but we need to create the Java file. And I'm going to do that by coming here and going to File. I'm going to go to New. Right? And the nice thing about Dreamweaver with the CSS is that we could use the CSS designer, insert it. Here we're not quite as lucky. We actually have to go up here and go to File New. And you'll see right here there's an option for JavaScript. You can see you can do CSS up here as well. So you could do that way. But with the CSS designer having the built-in feature for CSS, we avoid doing it that way. But JavaScript, we have to go through this menu. And you can see there's a bunch of different ways to do some of these things that we're going to be looking at. But I'm going to start first with the JavaScript file. And I'm going to click Create. And right now, this JavaScript document is blank. There's nothing in it. That's fine. Before I go ahead and do anything else, I want to save the JavaScript file. So I'm coming up here, I'm going to File. I'm going to go to Save. And it's going to ask me to save it. And of course, you want to save it in the same folder as your web design stuff. So, for each of your labs, you'll want to, submit similar protocols that we've been doing. You have to, make new JavaScript files for each lab. And then just make sure you're linking the appropriate JavaScript file in when you submit both your HTML code and your JavaScript code. One thing I recommend is that for these exercises, even though I'm showing the one that we still have all our CSS and stuff like that in there, you can just start with a blank HTML document that has just the minimum stuff that we need for these 8 exercises coming up. If I just ask for your JavaScript file, like I believe this first lab is simply just going to have a JavaScript file that you're submitting to me, then you're just going to submit the JavaScript file to me. So I'm just going to call this my script. Click Save. And now this JavaScript file is saved. So back in my HTML code, I'm going to add that code in using the script tag. And I'm going to say source equals, and see it's asking me to browse, so I'm going to browse. And I'm going to choose my script. Close the tag. And I'm done. That's it. That's all you need to do to add in a JavaScript file. Now you will notice that with JavaScript files, they have the extension .js. And so you'll see source code is always like .html, CSS is .css, and JavaScript is .js. So that's one way to kind of know about how to manipulate those different things. And again, for this lesson, for the first time, you're just going to have to submit your JS file. For the successive lessons, you might have to submit your HTML and JS file, but the big thing I'm going to be looking at is going to be your JavaScript file. If I look at the lessons here real quick, let me just make sure. I believe you are just for this section, you just need to submit to me your JavaScript file. So for the whole section on JavaScript, so the 6 lessons that we have, you don't need to submit to me your HTML file. I'm just going to look for your JavaScript file. You can actually hold on to your HTML file, but you should put this in here so you can test it on your own because this is how you're going to get it to work. is having that script in there. But you just need to submit this JS file, and you'll have to make a new one for each exercise. You know, like exercise 1A, 1B, or 2A, whatever. And just make sure those are being submitted to me. So until next time, folks.